The Crystal Ballroom at the Heathman Hotel was everything my parents would have chosen. Chandeliers dripping crystal, white tablecloths starched to precision, flower arrangements that probably cost more than my first month's rent in Seattle. 200 guests in formal attire, clutching champagne flutes, making small talk about golf handicaps and investment portfolios. I stood in the entrance with Lily beside me. She wore a navy blue dress, simple and elegant. I'd chosen black professional, understated, impossible to ignore. You okay? She whispered. I'm about to crash my parents' 50th anniversary party to tell 200 people they've been lying for 20 years. I squeezed her hand. I'm terrified. That's not what I asked. I looked at her. This incredible young woman who'd grown up knowing her grandparents had tried to erase her, who'd built her own strength from that knowledge instead of letting it break her. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. We walked in. The room was arranged around a raised platform at the far end where my parents would give their speeches. A camera crew was setting up the live stream for Grace Fellowship Church. I could see the Facebook Live indicator already blinking. And there they were, Richard and Diane Meyers, standing on that stage, surrounded by well-wishers. My mother in champagne-colored silk, my father in a tailored navy suit, both of them glowing with the confidence of people who believed they'd won. They hadn't noticed us yet. The room was too crowded, the attention too focused on them, but heads were starting to turn. Someone near the door whispered, "Is that someone else?" The daughter from the article. The whispers spread like ripples in water. And then my mother looked up. My father had just begun his speech. 50 years of marriage has taught me that family is everything. Diane and I have built our lives around that principle, our children, our community, our faith. His voice carried across the ballroom, amplified by the microphone, captured by the live stream camera. 200 faces watched adoringly on the small monitor near the stage. I could see the Facebook Live comment section scrolling. Beautiful couple. God bless the Myers family. What an inspiration. My mother saw me first. Her champagne smile froze. I watched her hand tighten on my father's arm. He followed her gaze, stopped mid-sentence. The room began to notice. Heads turning, whispers building. Someone near the back said loud enough to carry, "That's her from the magazine, the design CEO." Someone else, "That's Richard's daughter. I thought she was in Europe." My father recovered first. As I was saying, family has always. I started walking toward the stage. The crowd parted. Not dramatically, this wasn't a movie, but people stepped aside, sensing something was about to happen. Lily walked beside me, her chin high, her step steady. Nathan appeared at the edge of the crowd, Carolyn beside him. They didn't try to stop me, they just watched. "Grace," my father's voice came through the speakers, strained now. "What a surprise! We weren't expecting." I climbed the 3 steps to the platform. The live stream camera tracked my movement. I could feel 200 pairs of eyes on me, plus however many were watching online. "Hello, Dad." I took the microphone from his hand before he could react. "Hello, everyone. My name is Grace Myers. For those of you who don't know me, and many of you don't, I'm Richard and Diane's youngest daughter." I paused. "The one they told you went to Europe 20 years ago." The silence in that ballroom was absolute. "I didn't go to Europe," I continued. "On the 14th of November, 2004, 20 years ago tomorrow, my parents discovered I was pregnant at 16. That same night, they threw me out of their house. They had their lawyer draft papers disowning me. They told me I was dead to them." Someone gasped. The live stream comments were exploding. I could see them scrolling faster than anyone could read. They told everyone I'd gone abroad. For 20 years, they pretended I didn't exist. I reached into my bag and pulled out the notarized letter. This is the document my father mailed me 3 days after throwing me out. It states that I forfeit all inheritance rights and that the Myers family has no obligation to me or, I quote, any dependents thereof. I held it up to the camera, close enough to read. "Those dependents? That's my daughter Lily." I gestured to where she stood at the edge of the stage. "Your granddaughter, who you've never met. The grandson you've been telling your friends about for months doesn't exist. You invented him based on a magazine article you didn't read carefully." My father grabbed for the microphone. Grace, this isn't the place. When is the place, Dad? I held the mic out of his reach. When is the right time to tell the truth? You came to my house last week offering me $250,000 to parade a fictional grandson at this party. $250,000 to make your lie look real. I turned to the crowd, to the camera, to the 200 witnesses and the thousands watching online. I didn't come here for money. I came here because I'm done being erased. Pastor Harrison stepped forward. Richard, is this true? My father couldn't answer. My mother started crying. I'd only seen Diane Meyers cry once in my entire childhood at her own mother's funeral. Now tears streamed down her face, ruining the careful makeup she'd spent hours perfecting. Richard. Pastor Harrison's voice was firm. I asked you a question. Is what your daughter is saying true? The room held its breath. My father looked at the crowd, the mayor, the Rotary Club board members, the church elders who had respected him for decades. I watched him calculate, search for an angle, try to find words that would spin this into something acceptable. He couldn't find them. It was a difficult time, he finally said. We made decisions. You threw me out because I was pregnant. My voice stayed calm. Because your reputation mattered more than your child. Nathan stepped onto the stage, then Carolyn. They stood beside me, not touching, but present. She's telling the truth, Nathan said, his voice carrying through the room. Carolyn and I were there that night. We watched from the window while our parents put our 16-year-old sister out in the rain. We never said anything. That was our failure. The whispers became a roar. I could see people pulling out phones, texting, recording. The mayor was already moving toward the exit. Mrs. Torres, I said, pointing to a gray-haired woman in the back row who had flown in from Portland that morning. Our neighbor from 20 years ago. She saw everything. She has photos, timestamps. Maggie Torres stood, her chin lifted. I watched that child stand in the rain for 10 minutes before she walked away. I gave her a place to sleep. The Myers family never once asked where she went. The live stream comments exploded. This is insane. Those poor girls. Someone called the news. I handed the microphone back to my father. He took it reflexively, like a man in shock. I didn't come here to destroy you, I said quietly enough that only those on stage could hear. I came here to stop being invisible. Then I turned back to the crowd and raised my voice. I'm not asking for your pity. I don't need it. 20 years ago, I was thrown out with nothing. Today, I own a design company in Seattle with 22 employees and over $4 million in annual revenue. My daughter is a sophomore at the University of Washington. We built our lives without the Myers family's help. I looked directly at the camera. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because my parents tried to buy my silence last week, $250,000 to pretend their lies were true. I'm here because they deserve to face the consequences of what they did. Not in private. In front of the community they value more than their own children. Lily climbed onto the stage and took my hand. I'm Lily, she said into the microphone, the granddaughter they never wanted. I'm 19 years old. I've known my whole life that my grandparents chose their reputation over my mother, and by extension, over me. She looked at Richard and Diane. You could have known me. You could have watched me grow up. You could have been at my birthday parties, my school plays, my high school graduation. Her voice cracked. You chose not to, and now you don't get to pretend that was ever our fault. Lily handed back the microphone and walked off the stage. I followed her. Behind us, the Crystal Ballroom erupted into chaos. At the ballroom door, I turned back one last time. One more thing. My voice cut through the chaos. I'm not going to sue you. I'm not going to contest the will or demand money. The disinheritance papers you signed 20 years ago, I'm keeping them as a reminder of who you really are, not as a weapon. Richard looked up, something like confusion crossing his face. He'd expected a battle, a lawsuit, demands. But understand this. If you ever spread lies about me or my daughter again, if you ever try to contact Lily without her consent, or spin some new story about us for your friends, I will make every document I have public. I have the disinheritance letter, I have time-stamped photos, I have witnesses. I nodded toward Mrs. Torres. And now I have 200 witnesses to this conversation. Eleanor Vance appeared at my elbow. Ready? Yes. As we walked through the doors, I heard Pastor Harrison's voice. Richard, Diane, I think we need to talk privately tonight. Lily squeezed my hand as we stepped into the November evening. The air was cold and clean, and for the first time in 20 years, I felt like I could breathe. Mom, her voice was small. Did we do the right thing? I thought about 16-year-old Grace standing in the rain with a suitcase and a baby she hadn't planned for. I thought about all the years of building, surviving, fighting to become someone worth being. We told the truth, I said. We set a boundary. We let them face the consequences of their own choices. I pulled her into a hug. That's not revenge. That's justice. What happens now? I looked up at the night sky. Now we go home. The fallout began within hours. By midnight, the live stream clip had been shared over 800 times. By morning, that number had tripled. Someone had titled it Woman Exposes Parents' 20-Year Lie at Their Anniversary Party and uploaded it to YouTube, where it accumulated tens of thousands of views in the first 24 hours. 47 guests left the party within 30 minutes of my departure. I learned this from Nathan, who called me the next morning with a full report. Mayor Simmons walked out without saying goodbye to Dad. Mrs. Patterson from the church board followed him. The Hendersons, you remember them? They own the chain of auto dealerships. They actually apologized to me on their way out. Apologized for never asking where you were, for just accepting the story. By Monday, Richard had resigned his position as elder at Grace Fellowship Church. For personal reasons, the church bulletin stated. But everyone knew. By Wednesday, the Rotary Club board announced they would be reviewing membership criteria at their next meeting. Richard's name was specifically mentioned, and through it all, I was in Seattle answering emails from potential clients. 7 new inquiries came in that week, people who'd seen the magazine article 2 years ago and had just connected it to the viral video. Some fallouts destroy, others clarify. Mine did both. A week after the party, a reporter from the magazine called. The same journalist who'd written my profile 2 years earlier. Grace, I don't know if you've seen, but your video is everywhere. We'd love to do a follow-up piece. The CEO who confronted her past. What do you think? I thought about it. Let me get back to you. Of course. Just know the response has been overwhelming. People are connecting with your story. A lot of them have similar experiences. She wasn't wrong. My company's general inbox was flooded with messages. Not about design, about family, about being cut off, about spending years feeling invisible and finally finding the courage to speak. Your video made me call my brother for the first time in 12 years. I'm a teen mom too. You gave me hope. Thank you for showing that success is the best response to people who tried to destroy you. The following week, I flew to Seattle for Nathan and Carolyn's first visit to my home in 20 years. We sat in my living room, the same room where our parents had tried to buy my silence, and talked for 6 hours. Nathan told me about the years of guilt. Carolyn cried when she met Lily for the first time. Their children, my niece and nephew, ages 8 and 11, played in my backyard while the adults tried to rebuild something from the wreckage. I'm sorry, Nathan said. I know it's not enough. I know sorry doesn't cover 20 years. No, I agreed. It doesn't. But it's a start. Lily watched from the doorway this young woman who'd grown up without extended family, finally seeing what it might look like to have one. Imperfect, complicated, but real. 1 week after the party, my phone rang with an Oregon number. My mother, Grace. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. I'm not calling to apologize. I don't know how to apologize for what we did. Then why are you calling? A long silence. I watched the video, the live stream. I've watched it 11 times. Another pause. I keep looking at your face when you're talking, trying to see my daughter, the one I put out in the rain. I said nothing. Your father is, she trailed off. He's not doing well. The church, the Rotary, his colleagues, everyone is looking at him differently now. He doesn't know how to handle it. I didn't do this to punish him or you. I know. I know that now. Her voice cracked. You did it because you had to stop pretending. You did it because we gave you no other choice. Why did you call, Mom? The longest silence yet. Because I wanted to hear your voice. Because I haven't heard it in 20 years. And I realized I might never hear it again. She was crying now because my granddaughter stood on that stage and told 200 people she'd spent her whole life knowing we didn't want her, and I couldn't breathe. I closed my eyes. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said. I might never be, but I'm not going to hang up on you either. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. We stayed on the line for another minute, not speaking. Then she said goodbye. She didn't ask for another chance. She didn't demand anything. Maybe that was progress. Or maybe it was just the first step of a very long road. Thanksgiving. My dining table, the one I'd bought years ago from an estate sale and refinished myself, seated 12, it had never been this full. Lily sat at my right hand, Eleanor Vance at my left. Mrs. Torres, who'd flown up from Portland again, was teaching my nephew how to fold napkins into swans. Nathan carved the turkey while his wife set out side dishes. Caroline's daughters were arguing about who got to light the candles. My parents weren't there, we hadn't reached that point, maybe we never would. But looking around that table, I realized something. I'd spent 20 years mourning a family that had never really wanted me. Now I was surrounded by people who'd chosen to be here, who wanted to know me, not a version of me, not a prop for their image, me. Lily stood to make a toast. I wrote something for Mom. She pulled out a folded paper. When I was little, I used to ask why I didn't have grandparents like the other kids. Mom always told me the truth that they'd made a choice, and that choice wasn't about me. It took me years to really understand that. She looked at me. But I understand now. And I know that everything I have, everything I am, is because you never let their choice define us. She raised her glass. To the family we build, not the one we're born into. Everyone drank. Later, after the dishes were cleared and the guests were scattered through my house drinking coffee, I stood at the kitchen window. Lily appeared beside me. You okay? I looked at my daughter. At this life, I'd assembled from the ruins of everything I thought I'd lost. Yeah, I said, I really am. I think about the people who helped me along the way. Not just the ones I've mentioned, but the ones whose stories intersect with mine in ways I'll never fully know. There's Hazel Bennett, the community journalist who wrote about small businesses in Seattle's neighborhoods. She was the first person to interview me when Hearth Home Interiors was just a converted closet and a dream. She didn't write about the scandal or the family I'd left behind. She wrote about the work, about the way I made people feel seen in their own homes. That article got me my first real client. Michael Vance, Eleanor's nephew, who handles my company's advertising accounts now, he didn't know my story when he took on Hearth Home as a client. He just believed in the product. When he found out about everything else, he said, I don't care who you came from. I care who you are now. Grandpa Harold Freeman, a retired aerospace assembly supervisor who lives in the apartment below my office. He's been woodworking for 40 years. He made me a custom desk for my corner office, solid oak, hand-carved details, more beautiful than anything I could have bought. When I tried to pay him, he said, I don't charge family. Diane Carver, the small business consultant who helped me write my first business plan. She told me, your background isn't a liability, Grace. It's proof that you can survive anything. Robert Sterling, who manages the construction projects for my commercial clients. He's the one who told me, you don't need to apologize for your success. You earned it. Lauren Ashford, who writes grants for nonprofits and volunteers at the women's shelter where I sometimes speak, she said, your story gives people permission to stop being ashamed of where they came from. William Pemberton, a corporate litigation partner who offered to represent me pro bono when my parents' threats started coming. I don't like bullies, he said, and I don't like people who think money can erase the past. Eleanor Granger, the university dean who helped Lily get a scholarship. I don't care about your grandparents, she told Lily. I care about your grades and your potential. Jessica Hart, Lily's elementary school teacher from years ago. She saw a struggling single mother and made sure Lily always had extra snacks in her backpack. I knew you were doing everything you could, she told me recently. I just wanted to help. Gregory Nash, an elder law specialist who reviewed my parents' disinheritance papers for free. This is cruel, he said. And it's not as airtight as they think. But you're not going to sue them, are you? No, I said. I'm not. Good, he said. Living well is the best revenge. Patricia Trish Monroe, who runs the front desk at my doctor's office. She's the one who told me, I was a teen mom too. My daughter's a nurse now. We both made it. So will you. Julian Cross, a recreational therapist assistant who leads support groups for families in crisis. He asked me to speak to his group once. Your story isn't just about surviving, he told me. It's about thriving. People need to see that. Beatrice Tolliver, the retired librarian who runs a book club at the community center. She included my article in her reading list. This, she said, is what resilience looks like. Eugene Jean Porter, a former commercial airline pilot who now volunteers at the women's shelter. He drives the van that picks up mothers and children on cold nights. He told me, I've flown all over the world, seen a lot of things, but I've never seen anything braver than a young mother choosing to keep her child against all odds. Natalie Chen, a licensed practical nurse in the geriatric ward where Mrs. Torres volunteers. She called me after the party video went viral. I take care of elderly people who've been abandoned by their families, she said. I know what it looks like. I know what you survived. Morris Goldman, a retired transit bus driver who runs a soup kitchen downtown. He's the one who said, You're not a product of your circumstances, you're a product of your choices, and you chose to rise. I think about all of them, all the people who saw me, really saw me when I was invisible to my own family. They weren't my blood, they were something better. They were my people. I still have the papers, the disinheritance letter, the photos. They sit in a fireproof box in the back of my closet, next to Lily's baby pictures and Marcus's worn leather wallet. I look at them sometimes, not to feel the pain I've felt enough of that, but to remind myself of who I was and how far I've come. The girl standing in the rain with a suitcase didn't know she was going to build an empire. She just knew she had to keep moving forward. And she did. If you're still listening, let me leave you with this. 20 years ago, I was a scared 16-year-old standing in the rain, watching my parents' taillights disappear down the street. I thought my life was over. I thought I had nothing left. I was wrong. I had Marcus for as long as I could have him. I had Mrs. Torres who opened her door when she didn't have to. I had Eleanor who saw potential in a young mother with nothing but determination. I had Lily, who grew up knowing the truth and chose to be fierce instead of bitter. And eventually, I had myself. The version of me who stopped asking for permission to exist. If you're in a situation where your family makes you feel like you need to shrink yourself to be acceptable, like your worth depends on their approval, I understand. I've been there. But here's what I know now. You don't need their validation to know your value. Setting boundaries isn't revenge, it's survival. And sometimes the family you build is stronger than the one you were born into. My parents still haven't apologized. Not really. Richard has barely spoken since the party. Diane calls occasionally, and I answer when I can. Nathan and Carolyn are trying. We're all trying. But I'm not waiting for them to change. I'm living my life, the one I built, the one I earned, the one that belongs entirely to me. That's not a happy ending. It's a real one. And real endings don't need applause. They just need truth. Thank you for listening to my story.